world. Please join me today in welcoming my next guest who believes in doing things differently and creating brands that people can love and relate to. Last but not least, he also believes the best way to get there is to create incredible content that stops people in their tracks and truly makes them think. Please join me in welcoming Chris Sheen, Director of Social at Celonis, to the show. Chris, are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
What an intro. Yeah, I'm very ready. Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. And yes, you are worth quite the intro. I have been counting down the days to get you on an episode of Radically Transparent because I know, when it comes to making people think, you don't hold back. You're up there. You're one of the best at it.
Oh, that's very kind. And yeah, I'm just a big believer in creativity, I think, and the importance. It's the best part of marketing for me is doing stuff that you're proud of and that makes people think. So yeah, very excited to talk more about it.
Absolutely. So listen, when it comes to making people think, right? I don't think it's as easy as everybody may think, right? And so I have to ask you, Chris, what is it about B2B marketing that keeps you up at night professionally?
Great question. I think, to be honest, if we're being honest, most B2B marketing can be pretty boring. Like we've all seen it. We all know the companies in our heads. And it's especially on social media, which is my kind of main focus at the moment. It's this idea of just constant promotion of webinars and ebooks and all the kind of usual stuff that almost gives marketing a bad name, but particularly B2B. And that's probably the thing that keeps me up is making sure that what we're doing isn't boring and is interesting. And I always say that it drains energy. Like when you're doing stuff that you're not excited about, it drains energy from yourself. It ultimately drains energy from your audience because they're not excited to do it. And for me, a good day at work and in social media is when you're excited. Right now, we're excited about the posts that we've got going out that day. We're excited about the posts that we're working on. And when you have days like that, you come at the end of the day, yeah, that was great. That was really fun. And when you have days that aren't like that, you're like, okay, we need to start doing things differently again. And it's hard. It's a lot of energy that has to go into kind of constantly being creative and driving things forward, but it's energy well spent.
I completely agree with you. And I think avoiding boredom in B2B is one of the biggest challenges, whether it's finding that creative piece of content or also, right, like as marketers, how do you say the same thing over and over again in a creative way that's still going to drive results, get leads, impact revenue, and all the other wonderful things that marketing needs to do? So, how are you actually ensuring that your campaigns on social are creative and engaging rather than just noise? And especially, I know you manage quite a high volume of posts. So how does that even how do you really make sure that they're not boring?
Yeah, honestly, it's the hardest part of the job, like genuinely. And I wouldn't say that we get it right all the time. I think it's very difficult. It's particularly hard when you scale. So when I joined Celonis, we actually posted about 5 times a week. So it was relatively low volume, to be honest, a lot lower than where we are now. And now we often post 5 times a day. So we've shifted massively. We do well over 1,000 posts on LinkedIn a year now. That's our main platform. And that balancing act between quality and quantity is a constant challenge. We're really global. We've got loads of different teams that we need to support to help them kind of get their message out there. And the big line that we have at the moment within the team is like, think beyond the banner, because it's so obvious in LinkedIn just to end up doing a promotional banner. Imagine a webinar. What are you going to promote it with? Well, we'll create one of those nice little banners with the title. We'll put a couple of photos of the people on it, and you do it. And we're seeing more and more that kind of stuff just doesn't work on LinkedIn anymore. Like we've got to do something different. And and in terms of like how we do that, well, I'm a massive believer in the idea of a swipe file. So have you familiar with that concept?
Swipe file, you said?
Yeah, I think it comes from journalism. But it's basically the idea of when you see something cool or interesting, you put it away. So my swipe file that we use is basically like a Google Slides sort of PowerPoint type thing. But it's got, I think at last look, it's got like 75 slides each one is just a cool post or a cool video or something we've seen that's different.
Oh, cool.
And it could be anything. It could be a B2B example. It could be something that Oktopost have done. It could be something that we've seen Apple do. It could be like a Christmas advert. Like it could be anything. And it's just this idea of like almost a collection of cool ideas, you know. And there's that great quote which I love, which is like, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." And I'm just a huge fan of like finding ideas from weird places, and using, it could be music, movies, anything, and using the Christmas ads example actually, because it's very current. We had a meeting, like a workshop last week, planning basically our Cellosphere, which is our big event, our promotional video on the day of Cellosphere. And to kick off the meeting, I'm a bit obsessed with Christmas ads. In the UK, they're a bit legendary. And I've got a playlist on YouTube of all my favorite Christmas ads of all time. And to kick off the meeting, I played it. And so we watched like 4 or 5 amazing John Lewis Christmas ads. And it kind of set the direction for what we're doing with our video. And it, in that instance, without giving too much away, it was like these ads have got no script in terms of voiceover. It's just purely music and powerful music alongside like amazing imagery. And hopefully it'll come out well, we'll see. But it's inspired by a Christmas ad. And I actually love that because it's, again, that's how you can ensure that it's something you're going to be excited about and it's a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really like that idea, and I'm just thinking to myself how nice it would have to be have a swipe file, like when your brain's not working the way it needs to, or maybe you're trying to combine and come up with something really great. But that kind of leads me into my next question, right? You mentioned that your file is like what, 75 something slides long, and you're adding as you go, which is fantastic. How do you balance volume and quality? And I'm going to take that beyond the swipe file, right? Like we know when it comes to creating posts on social media, like LinkedIn alone, I took a look at your feed, right? How do you strike that balance between maintaining a high volume of posts and then also making sure each post has an impact and it's not just adding noise? What are you looking at?
Yeah, when I have the answer, I'll tell you. But I don't know. So
Let us know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, joking aside, it is difficult, and again, I think there are times. Um, I think any social media person can probably relate to this. That there's weeks that a week we'll look at the end of the week. I'll look at our feed and I think, oh wow, that was a great week. Really proud of everything. Then you have other weeks when you're like, yeah, maybe some of those could be better. I think it's just the nature of the game. I think with us right now, and managing scale, it really is a team effort. So obviously doing the volume of posts that we do, we work with loads of different teams across Celonis. So Celonis is like a 3,000 person company. So you can imagine there's lots of different people who contribute ideas and stuff that they want social to post. So actually right now, a big thing is education for me. So another thing that I've recently created is a lookbook. So a social media lookbook, which again is slides. I do love PowerPoint slides, I won't lie. But it's basically a lookbook of some of the best and more creative and high performing posts that we've done in the last 2.5 years. And the idea of that is that if we can get all of the other people across Celonis thinking a little bit differently, inspired by different creative ideas, then by the time it comes to social as maybe a formed post, again, they're thinking beyond the banner. So they've done, oh, inspired by the lookbook, we're promoting this webinar. We actually shot a quick video with the people who are going to be in the webinar talking about what's going to be in the webinar, how great it's going to be. Um, and I think that education part, when you get to that level of quantity, is really important because we can't, as a team of, we're a small team of 4, relatively small. We don't do all 1,200 posts in isolation. We have loads of other people we work with. So educating them on what works and what doesn't is massive. And I'll give an example because it's quite a funny one. Um, a big thing, for LinkedIn more than ever, and probably for any company listening, photos are actually work really well on LinkedIn. So whether you love them or not, photos of events that you're at, whether it's a third party event you're a sponsor at or your own events, good quality photos. It's like a little bit of a hack on LinkedIn that always do quite well. And so with that in mind, whenever we have events, it's like, look, if you've got a stand, like let's take some good photos of it. Like we can try and get that on social if there's a little story around it. And we have been sent some historically amazingly bad photos over the years. My favorite example being someone sent as their photos in the event, they'd done a screenshot of them taking a photo rather than the photo itself. So, you know, when you have like on Apple, on iPhone, and you've got like the little border around and then the little button to take the photo, they sent us the photo and it was the people like posing for the photo, but they just had that around it. And it was so funny. And I was like, we really, yeah, I that's unsavable at that point. So we just put together with the help of Emma, shout out to Emma from the talent team, just some like photography, like guide to taking good photos on your phone, like a little guide and some tips. And then what we get now sometimes are just amazing photos. You know, we've got like in our Madrid office, we've got this fantastic rooftop. You can imagine in the summer when we have internal events, they look amazing. And we get photos back from, you know, across the board now, and they look brilliant. And you're like, oh wow, I mean, that'll do really well on social. So sometimes that's just one example where you have to fix it before it even gets to you, if you know what I mean. Because if you sent a screenshot, there's really not much you can do at that point.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening in, I think this is really important because a lot of times social media teams, they'll come to us and they'll ask, what can we do to make sure that our, teammates are in our, like, we'll get there, but like employee advocacy programs, for example, what can we do to help our employees share more, share better, right? And what you shared just now with the photos, I feel for us, it's such a basic, you know, we and especially for digitally natives, like it's so basic of a thing to think about, but it's not intuitive for all. And I think that's what we have to remember for social is we're only as strong as the knowledge of the weakest one. And so we need to get a level playing field, and with photography and all of these creative forms of telling a story, we have to share that beyond the marketing team and break down those silos that everyone can be a marketer. Let me show you how. And it just takes a second or two to do it. You mentioned earlier that you're 3,000 people strong, which is absolutely incredible. And when it comes to a company of your size, where my mind immediately goes is in terms of risks, because in some ways, like, okay, you see what works, you know what works, keep doing it. You've got your rhythm, you've created your machine. But then going back to the start of our conversation with making sure that we're not being boring, right? How do you maintain within your team a culture of risk taking and in the innovation, but without falling to the trap of, complacency or making sure that you're not, spending too much time on the risks and not enough time of what those consistent foundational things are to move it forward?
Yeah, great question. There was a really great quote actually that was on an Oktopost podcast that I loved, which was, if you haven't been asked to remove a social post, then you probably haven't done social properly yet. And I really like really like that idea. And it really struck me because I think it's so true. And we have had in my time quite a few times when we've been asked to maybe remove a post from by internal sort of stakeholders who felt we've taken too much of a, push something too far. And actually, I think actually probably is a good sign that we're doing it. And the nice thing about social is you can remove stuff in seconds. Like it's not a huge issue. Um, and I think I'm really lucky at Sloan. It's one of the reasons that I love Sloan so much is that we are, from a marketing and brand point of view, trying to be different. There's a real conscious effort for the brand to differentiate itself and to like be non-corporate really, even though we are kind of growing to be quite a big enterprise. So I think that's really important. And you know, there's like one of our kind of signature things on our social media style, I guess, is we do a lot of these graffiti style wall art kind of like mock-ups. So we might do like a powerful quote or an inspiring quote or something. And actually what we'll find with that is the more powerful the statement, the much more likely it is to get comments and get people thinking and stuff like that. So I won't bore you with too much detail about Celonis, but one that we did is, which I thought was really cool at the time, I really liked it, is one of the challenges we help solve is that a lot of businesses, believe it or not, pay invoices more than once. So it's something like 1 in 20 invoices, big businesses will pay it twice. So it's crazy, just like actually throwing money away because of a process that's broken down somewhere and an invoice will get paid more than once. So it's just like, oh, that's just insane. And then we just did this really cool billboard mock-up, which just said like, you wouldn't pay a restaurant bill twice. And I just really like that. The idea of like the bill comes to the restaurant, you go, yeah, I'll pay it. And then someone else goes, oh, I'll pay it as well. You just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And actually that got loads of comments. It really struck home with that small kind of audience that really own that problem within the business. And I think that sometimes we'll do stuff that's just less interesting than that and just a bit safer. It will just get nothing. You get zero engagement. And so it's a very simple kind of concept of just, that's not a huge risk, but it's just finding a way to kind of do something different. Another one that we did a couple of years back was we did this look up campaign, kind of inspired by the movie Don't Look Up. It came up and this
Ah,
idea of, yeah, yeah. And we did this really crazy rant video from a guy on my team, Henry, who is now gone off to be famous. He'll be a movie star at some point. Henry Rowley, for those who listen, he's huge on Instagram and TikTok. But anyway, he was part of the social team, and he did this amazing like 5 minute rant under a bridge in Munich. It was black and white shot. It was incredible. It was one take. And it was all about basically how we need to fix the planet by taking more responsibility for ourselves and how we live and everything. And honestly, it's probably the most polarizing piece of marketing that I've ever been involved in. In terms of internally, I would say it really split people down the middle. We had so much feedback that loved it. Like this is the best thing I've ever seen from Celonis. It was amazing. It really caught me. I showed it to my wife. I went home and showed it to my kids. It was like really powerful. And then we had another half of the people who hated it. They felt it had gone too far. It was too aggressive. It was it was too bold a statement for Celonis to be making. That was really fascinating. And actually the kind of comments that we had on LinkedIn were probably more externally on the positive side, but of course there were a few negative ones as well. And I was like, wow, it's really fascinating as an experiment because it was like, well, we probably got it right because if you get no reaction at all, you've played it much too safe. And the fact we got such a big reaction, maybe we went one step too far, but it kind of becomes a bit of a guide to go, well, actually, I'd rather be a little bit more on that end of the scale than playing it too safe. But yeah, it's you have to have, I think, the confidence and the faith of people around you that they're going to trust you to take risks. I think that's a big part of it.
absolutely. Now, I'm gonna jump because you're talking a lot about like the art of messaging, and I love the fact that people loved it and people hated it, and is that good? Is that bad? What does that mean? And I feel as marketers, it's very hard for people to hurt our feelings because that's pretty much our job daily. Someone's gonna love it, someone's gonna hate it, and you have to at the end of the day make that executive decision: is this going forward? Is it not? But that makes me start thinking about the actual art of messaging, right? So you described effective messaging earlier on also as like an art form, and like you're creating these videos, and when do you know if you've gone too far in the risk taking? But then if we bring it to that from a messaging perspective, in your opinion, what are the key elements that make up the art of messaging? And then how do you, with these elements, how do you train the rest of your team to capture that art of messaging, the essence?
Yeah, great question. Again, I like quotes. It's like there's another quote. It's easy to make things complex. It's difficult to make things simple. And I think the art of simplicity is like really underrated actually, of how like the real magic is keeping stuff simple. So um I think for us as a kind of real main premise is that try and avoid using complex language. Don't use business jargon. Keep things simple to really increase reach, particularly with social media. Like what science does already is quite complicated and it's hard for people to understand if they're new to it. It's a newish kind of concept for a lot of people. So our job actually is to try and make that as accessible for people as possible. And I always sort of say really simple, like if my 7-year-old couldn't understand it, then we maybe not got it right and we need to kind of bring it in and make it more simple. So I think keeping simple language is really is like the number one. And actually, I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT
Mm.
as a tool to help marketers, and I'm a big user, and I think actually for stuff like this, it can be really. There's probably two ways I really use it. One is brainstorming ideas. It's brilliant for that. But so right at the start of the creative process, it can be fantastic. But I also think it's really good for this side as well. So maybe you've got an idea, you've written maybe a post, you've got a concept, but actually it's brilliant at saying, can you make this more simple? Could you rewrite this for a 7-year-old? Could you rewrite this? So, it's actually really good at that sort of thing. And it might even be just one line you just know it could be clearer. It's really good actually at doing that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, we're big users of that in terms of helping us just kind of craft copy and make it a bit simpler.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think what's interesting about ChatGPT is you almost it's like we need to use it to be better, faster, smarter, but getting to roll with it. And I feel this would be an episode all in its own is like, what are the prompts that we as marketers need to put in to get the output that we need? But I feel we'll leave that for a different episode because what I'm thinking now, after we've discussed, right, the art of messaging, the risk taking, how to avoid boredom, right? What would you say are some of the biggest or most common pitfalls in our industry when it comes to maintaining the interest in B2B marketing or, staying relevant and not being boring? And how do we avoid them?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is jargon. I think it's almost a joke, isn't it? Like jargon is like, there's so many memes about it. And I think I always say to the team, none of us went to school thinking, do you know what I want to be? I want to be a B2B marketer. That's my dream.
That is true.
Yeah. So, but it's like when you become a B2B marketer, it's almost like you sit down at a keyboard and this like you get possessed and taken over. And as you start to write something, you become a B2B marketer. It's weird. Like, and I've got this amazing slide about this of a banned phrase for us in social. And I think there's going to be quite a few people listening to this who are going to cringe. But a banned phrase for us is thrilled to announce. And it's almost impossible. Say you're announcing a new partnership with the size have got, or a big event that's coming up. The first thing you write, almost possessed, is like, we're thrilled to announce. And it's so like, you could have won an award, thrilled to announce we won this award, thrilled to announce we got this event. And it's like, oh, I don't think I went to school and wrote that. But now I'm a B2B marketer, I have to write thrilled to announce. And I think that just, the reason I'm sort of saying I've got an amazing slide is I just found in no time at all, if you go on LinkedIn and just search for the phrase "thrilled to announce," you'll find so many posts. Um, and should I name a company does this a lot? Should I shame them? I'm going to shame them. Okay. No, I'm not going to shame them. I'm not going to shame them.
We'll be good B2B
I
marketing.
won't. I won't shame them. We all get it. We all get it. I'm not going to shame them. But you'll see it. You'll see it out there. And actually, and I completely get it because it's almost like the first default is that that happens. So I think avoiding jargon, avoiding kind of overused phrases like that, the second you take it out, it becomes different and it forces you to say it in a different way. And you can't cheat. You can't go pleased to announce, delighted to announce. So like the whole concept of just being overexcited about something is really tricky because what you'll find is you've got something to do the next day that is a similar thing. So you end up like every day you're really excited. So you're trying to have to like just sort of tone it down and find a different way to do it, a little bit more effortless and different. So I think that's a big one for me. And I'm going to come back to ChatGPT because I think it's a good one. One of the things that I'm a big believer in, and we've done a lot of time and spent a lot of time on this, and it was quite fun actually, is training ChatGPT to the way that you want to speak. So we've got like a custom GPT, I call it co-writer, that helps us write, and it is trained on our tone of voice. It's trained on avoiding phrases like that. It's trained on like rewriting stuff and trained on like using simple language. So what that really helps is it does in talking about prompts, it means it already knows what we want to do before we even start. So if I give it a post like that says we're thrilled to announce a partnership with so and so, it will come back and say, well, we can't use that because it says thrilled to announce. So here's another way that we could do it. So again, the tools are there to help you and like but I think avoiding that is one of the biggest things in the industry. Thrilled to announce.com. I should
I
buy that.
Yes, you should. And that might have been the best common pitfall advice that I've ever heard. And I'm also laughing because so I know, you sit on the other side of the pond, you can hear from my American accent. So we joke in America, right? Like our phrase is, I'm so excited. We're so excited, right? And we joke that like if you're excited every day, are you really excited? So I am now going to go to my chat GPT and start setting up these prompts because that's brilliant. And the band keyword that just got me at my
Yeah.
core.
Yeah,
So
the company that's so true, and the company that I didn't name, they did it twice within an hour, and I was like, you can't be that thrilled twice in an hour. It doesn't happen. This is the best day ever.
this is the
It can't
best day
happen.
ever, the best minute ever. So
Yeah.
with that said, listen, thank you for getting so radically transparent around how not to be boring as a B2B marketer. I have to ask, can you share with us something about yourself that we can learn about you from your LinkedIn profile that we would maybe it's not there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna. This is cheeky, but I have a podcast myself that isn't
Really?
on my LinkedIn profile. Yeah, so I have a podcast about Chelsea Football Club, which is my
Oh,
my soccer team, if you like. It's called 1905, the Chelsea Notes, and it's something I've always wanted to do. I wanted to be a journalist, a sports journalist as a kid. That was my dream, and it's something I always wanted to do. And this summer, me and a really good friend of mine were like, let's give it a go. Let's have a crack at doing our own thing. So yeah, we're only a few months in, but we've been really enjoying that. And if you are a football fan, then check it out.
absolutely. Well, congratulations on your podcast. I wish I knew more about I'll call it soccer, but I wish I knew more about it to be able to join in and probably understand it. But that's fantastic. So anyone listening in soccer or football or wherever you are in the world, please feel free to head on over to Chris Sheen's podcast. And Chris, I've got to ask, anybody listening in who is interested to speak B2B marketing, social media, you had some great advice in this episode. Where's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place. Happy to always happy to hear from people. And yes, LinkedIn, Chris Sheen and Celonis.
Fantastic. Chris, thank you for getting radically transparent with me today.
I really enjoyed it. It was great fun, and I love the podcast. Keep it up.